Shabbat shalom, everybody.
Shabbat shalom.
Those beautiful words from our opening song this evening come from the book of Song of Songs, a book and a passage which is traditionally associated with this time of year, the beginning of springtime, the beginnings of new life, and the dawn of a new hopeful season in the year. This is also a special time of new beginnings for the Fischel and Kasner families also, as their sons begin their first weekend as Jewish adults this weekend. We're so delighted to be celebrating with Max and Levi and their families this weekend. And so I want to invite Max and Levi up to the bima along with their parents, Barry and David, and Cindy and Lewis, to help us begin our service with the lighting of Shabbat candles. As these families make their way up, I'll invite all of you to turn in your books to page 3, where you'll find this meditation before we light Shabbat candles. Barry and David, over here. Oops.
As the Shabbat candles give light to all who behold them, so may we, by our lives, give light to all who behold us.
As their brightness reminds us of the generations of Israel who have kindled light, so many we, in our own day, we among those who kindle light.
Cindy.
O source of light and truth, creator of the eternal law of goodness, help us to find knowledge by which to live. Lead us to take the words we shall speak into our hearts and our lives.
Bless all who enter this sanctuary in need, all who bring the offerings of their hearts. May our worship lead us to acts of kindness, peace, and love.
Okay, let's light those candles.
Guys, come here.
Come on over.
Baruch atah Adonai,
Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat. Mazel tov, guys. Shabbat shalom. Thanks, guys.
And so we come together in song with these words of Psalm 95. Let us sing joyously unto God. Let us sing unto God a new song. Let us sing unto God a new song. Yai lai la lai lai la lai lai lai. Yai lai la lai 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 lai. Yai lai la lai 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 lai. Yai lai la lai 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 lai. Yai lai la lai 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 lai. And then we add continue welcoming Shabbat with Lecha Dodi, which can be found on page 20.
Lecha lecha dodi.
Nikat nikat kala, penei penei Shabbat nikavela. Lecha lecha dodi, nikat nikat kala, penei penei Shabbat nikavela. La la, lecha lecha dodi, nikat nikat kala, penei penei Shabbat nikavela. Lecha lecha dodi, nikat nikat kala, penei penei Shabbat nikavela. Shamor v'zachor v'dibbur echad, ishmi'anu el ha'meyuchad, Adonai echad u'shemo echad, l'shemo tiferet v'litila la 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 lecha dodi, nikat nikat kala, penei penei Shabbat nikavela. Lecha lecha dodi, nikat nikat kala, penei penei Shabbat nikavela. Mikrat Shabbat lechu v'nelcha, ki mekor haberacha, mirosh mikadam nesucha, so ma'aseh b'machshava tchila la 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 lecha dodi, nikat nikat kala, penei penei Shabbat nikavela. Lecha lecha dodi, nikat nikat kala, penei penei Shabbat nikavela. Hitoreri, hitoreri, ki va'orech u'mi'ori, uri uri shir dabiri, kivod Adonai alaich nigal la 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 lecha dodi, nikat nikat kala, penei penei Shabbat nikavela. Lecha lecha dodi, nikat nikat kala, penei penei Shabbat nikavela. We rise as we welcome the Shabbat bride. Boi v'shalom ateret bala, gam b'simcha u'b'tzola, toch emunei am segula. Boi chala, la 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 lecha dodi, nikat nikat kala, penei penei Shabbat nikavela. Lecha lecha dodi, nikat nikat kala, penei penei Shabbat nikavela. Penei penei Shabbat nikavela. Penei penei Shabbat nikavela.
We'll remain standing for a few moments more. First, we'll take advantage of this time to take just a moment to find someone nearby and wish them a Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. And now we remain standing and turn in our books to page 28 for Baruch Hu, page 28.
Yai lai lai, yai lai lai lai, 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 yai lai 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 lai,
On page 31, this is an hour of change. Within it, we stand uncertain on the border of light. Shall we draw back or cross over? Where shall our hearts turn? Shall we draw back, my brother, my sister, or cross over? This is the hour of change, and within it we stand quietly on the border of light. What lies before us? Shall we draw back, my brother, my sister, or cross over? Baruch atah Adonai ha'ma'ariv aravim.
Open up our eyes, teach us how to live, fill our hearts with joy and all the love you have to give. Gather us in peace as you lead us to your name, and we will know that you are one. Open up our eyes, teach us how to live, fill our hearts with joy and all the love you have to give. Gather us in peace as you lead us to your name, and you will know that you are one. We will know that you are one. Baruch atah Adonai, Ohev Amo Yisrael. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. 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 Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto, Leolam Vaed. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto, Leolam Vaed. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
You may be seated. It is my pleasure to invite Levi Kasner up to the bima to lead us in Ve'ahavta. If you'll turn to page 36, you'll find there the words with which Levi will lead us.
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך. וחיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם להיות על ידיך והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותי והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם אשר הוצאתיהם מארץ מצרים להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם.
On page 39, standing on the parted shores of history, we still believe what we were taught before ever we stood at Sinai's foot, that wherever we go, it is eternally Egypt, that there is a better place, a promised land, that the winding way to that promise passes through the wilderness, and that there is no way to get from here to there except by joining hands, marching together.
And so we sing the Micha Mocha on page 40, and we sing to a special melody tonight. It's the tune of Miriam's song. We have just entered this week into the month of Nisan, the Hebrew month called Nisan, and it is the month of Passover. And so I'm just imagining the Israelites have crossed the sea, they've gotten to the other side, and Miriam is leading them in dancing and singing and joy.
Friends, we'll continue now with the singing of Vishamru, the song that reminds us of the joy of celebrating Shabbat. This evening we'll be offering this Vishamru to a new melody written by our cantor.
Vishamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat. Vishamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat. Let's try it together. Vishamru b'nei Yisrael Vishamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat. It is a sign between me and you. It is a sign to carry us through. It is a sign between me and you. It is a sign through. Vishamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat. Vishamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat. In 6 days God made heaven and earth. In 6 days b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat v'shameru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat.
Time now for us to enter into the Amidah, into the central section of our service this evening. So I want to invite Max up to the bima to lead his congregation in prayer. As he makes his way up, we'll turn in our books to page 46, and we rise to prayer together.
Adonai Sephatai Tiftach Ufi Agita Hilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu, Elohei Avotenu v'Imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzhak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rahel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Hasadim Tovim, V'Konei HaKol, V'Zocher Astei Avot V'Imaot, U'Mevi Gula Livnei V'Nechem, Lema'an Shemo Be'achava, Melech Hozer U'Mashiach U'Magin, Baruch atah Adonai, Mechil Avraham, V'Ezrat Sarah. Atah Gibor Le'olam Adonai, Mechayeh HaKol Atarav Le'oshia. Mashiv HaRuach, Morid HaGashem, Melchalkel Hayim Bechesed. Mechayeh HaKol berachamim rabim, somech noflim ve'olfei cholim, umatir asurim, umekayem emunato lishenei avar, michamocha bal gevurot, umigdol melach, melech memit, umechayeh, umatzmiach Yeshua, v'ne'eman atah le'achayot hakol. Baruch atah Adonai, mechayeh hakol. Atah kadosh v'shimcha kadosh, u'kedoshim b'chol yom ya'alu chasela. Baruch atah Adonai ha'el hakadosh.
You may be seated. On page 59, when we behold your heavens, the work of your fingers, the moon and stars that you set in place, what are we humans that you are mindful of us? We mortals that you take note of us. You made us a little less than divine, adorned us with glory and majesty. You gave us dominion over your handiwork, laying the world at our feet. How majestic is your name throughout the earth.
Baruch atah Adonai, hatov shimcha u'lecha na'eh lehodot.
We'll continue with our prayer for peace. Shalom Rav, page 60.
Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam.
take a bit of quiet time now for us each to offer our own individual prayers in silence.
Oh, say shalom bimrama. Booyah, say shalom aleinu. Ve'al kol Yisrael. Ve'al kol yoshvei tevel. Ve'imru.
Back in our books now on page 253, page 253, we'll find the words of Mishaberach, our community's prayer for healing. Before we offer this prayer and song together, we take just a second to think about the people we know and love, and even those we may never have met who on this Shabbat are making their way, we hope, towards healing and wholeness. On this Shabbat, we'll offer our Mishaberach on behalf of Mark Archuleta, Sarah Astrich, Christy Barr, Charlotte Berkowitz, Melba Berman, Eileen Srsansky, Robert Cohn, Glenda Dunn, Barbara Fenton, Jennifer Forbes, and Carol Friedman, Marcine S. Goldman, Chuck Green, Barbara Halfant, Joyce Haufrecht, Terry Hazelwood, Christina Howard, Sarah James, Brad Clark, Lawrence Levy, Betsy Lewis, Samuel Lewis, Irene Martinez, Magdalene Pessin, Hattie Reese, Neil Reisman, Larry Robertson, Sidney Rogan, Bernard Rosenfeld, Carol Rubenstein, AJ Saper, Edward Simmons, Rick Sline, Inez Taylor, Lenny Weinberger, Rachel Weingart, Cindy Weiss, Roberta Weiss, Yvonne Zients, Jay Zucchero, Ariella Sharon Bat Yafa Shoshana, Gelka Nachama Bat Libachaya, Noach Ben Binyamin, Shana Yosefet, Yoshua Matityahu Ben Yaakov Prevachana, Yosefa Zeisel Bat Herschel Zelig, and all who are suffering with afflictions of body, mind, or spirit. Page 253.
And let us say, Amen.
Tonight we have the opportunity to offer another blessing of well-being, a blessing of gratitude and acknowledgement of a beautiful simcha, a couple of beautiful simchas actually. I want to invite Claire and Joel Berman to please stand up and let us say hello. There they are. So let me say a word to you about our friends, the Bermans. First of all, Joel, I hate to give you sort of second billing here, but I know you just had a birthday. Joel is entering into his 80th year this month, but top billing, star billing, goes to the wedding anniversary that these two are celebrating. These two are celebrating wedding anniversary number 55. It is a great opportunity for us to acknowledge the blessing of your love and to ask God's blessing on the two of you. We began our service this evening with some verses from Song of Songs, a classic, beautiful, lyrical poem about love, about what it feels like to have found your heart's desire and to have the always new experience of joy and reconnection when you spend time with them. The springtime, we're told, is a time of new hope and new promise. And as you enter into this time of anniversary and celebration, we hope that God's blessing will be with you for many, many more years of celebration and joy. May every springtime to come be one that reminds you of promise and hope and accomplishment. May it be one that brings the blessings of goodness and love, companionship and fidelity that you've enjoyed for these past 55 years and counting continue to come back again and again and again. And may you, with God's blessing, continue to celebrate many, many more. We give our thanks to God for the gifts of your life and the opportunity to celebrate another great milestone. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, shehechianu v'kiyamanu v'higianu lazman hazeh. We praise you, Adonai, our God, ruler of the universe, for giving us life and sustaining us and bringing us and you to this most beautiful, joyous anniversary. Mazel tov.
Mazel tov.
Mazel tov. Mazel tov. Friends, I want to share just a couple of very short calendar announcements with you this evening. We hope that you all are aware that now we're officially in the month of Nisan. That means Passover is very close. We hope that you will all be joining us for our second night Seder, Thursday the 6th at 6 p.m. You are still able to register for Seder through Wednesday, March 29th. It's going to be a great meal, a wonderful Seder. We're going to have a lot of fun. We hope that you'll join us for Seder this year, Thursday the 6th at 6. Next Saturday, April the 1st, after our 10:30 a.m. chapel service, we'll be having our monthly Shabbat Shmooze and Shmear. Join us for a bagel and shmear. You don't need to RSVP, just come to services and stick around afterwards for a bagel and a little bit of schmoozing. It's great. We look forward to seeing you and having a tasty nosh together. Also, Saturday, April the 1st, sorry, that would be, I guess, Friday the night before. Is it Saturday?
It's a Havdalah.
All right, Saturday, April 1st, 5:15 p.m. If you or someone you love has a pre-K student or a kindergarten student or a first grader in your family, you can join us for family dinner and Havdalah. Saturday night, that's going to be with Rabbi Fitzler. Saturday the 1st at 5:15, you can register on our website. So, friends, as the cantor and I have both mentioned in a couple of different ways this evening, this is a Shabbat of new beginnings. Today is the first Shabbat of a new Hebrew month. This is the month of Nisan, the season of springtime, which itself heralds new growth, new beginnings, and the hope of new life. Nisan, of course, as I mentioned, brings with it also the festival of Passover, which is the celebration of our people's new life, a life of liberation and independence and freedom from slavery. And this Shabbat, we have another new beginning. Also, we begin reading a new book of the Bible. As our Bar Mitzvah students can tell us delightedly, this Shabbat brings us out of the book of Exodus and into the wonderful, beautiful, always inspiring book of Leviticus. I have a very vivid memory about Leviticus from when I was a rabbinical student in the seminary. One of my professors was preparing to lecture about the book of Leviticus, which is, of course, a difficult book to appreciate, an even more difficult book to love. And he said something that has stuck with me ever since. He said, listen, you soon will be Reform rabbis. You will think of yourselves as deeply principled and seriously committed to spiritual and intellectual progress, committed to modernity and ethical rectitude. And you're going to study, as rabbis, this book of Leviticus, which is filled with the worst kinds of ancient stories there are. Stories about blood and gore and animal sacrifice, intricate details about disease and decay, unflinching and unabashed words about the form and function of human bodies, the most intimate details about our relationships with each other. And so this Bible professor said, if you, soon to be modern Reform rabbis, want to have careers of real honesty and real integrity, if you're serious about your commitment to teaching and preaching about the highest and most sophisticated progressive values, when you graduate and go on to serve a synagogue, you should remove the book of Leviticus from your Bibles and make do with 4 books of Moses. I'll come back to that story in a minute, but first another story. I was out of town last week doing some spring break travel with my family. We took our kids to Washington to show them the monuments and memorials and to introduce them to the great institutions of American democracy and American history. Visiting those classical structures and walking through those historic streets is always moving and inspiring, but as it turns out, it became somewhat more complicated for me as an adult than it was when I was a kid. Our ability, of course, to understand the subtleties of history and power increases and broadens as we mature. And it is also true that kids today are taught a somewhat more nuanced and critical portrait of American history than I was when I was their age, which on balance I think is a good thing. But it's also true that my kids and their contemporaries don't see quite as rosy a picture of our nation's history as they might have in a generation or two earlier. And so I could see that for them, having been taught in greater depth and detail about American history, my kids felt a kind of a disconnect, a sort of discomfiting irony when they walked through the marble halls of monuments and statuaries dedicated to the Founding Fathers, whose writings and ideas brought the principles of American liberty and democracy to life, but which also perpetuated the cruelties of colonial slavery and racism. It was a tension that I didn't sense, or at least didn't appreciate, when I was their age. That tension, of course, isn't a new one for anyone who lives in our country and wants to see it clearly for what it is and what it has been over the past 250 years or so. Questions about what America is and what it means, what it stands for, and how we can represent it honestly and respectfully are not novel. These are questions that, in the end, can only be answered equivocally by people with different perspectives and different personal experiences. One of the stops on our tour was through the Capitol building to tour the Great Rotunda and walk through the Statuary Hall. I learned from our tour guide that it was in 1860 that an act of Congress provided for the establishment of a national statuary that would be filled with works of sculptural art provided by every state in the Union. There are today 100 statues, 2 from each state, representing significant historical figures who contributed to the legacy of their home states. Over the years, of course, sensibilities have changed, new biographical information has come to light, and at times the state legislatures have come to feel somewhat less proud of the way that people like William Jennings Bryan or Robert E. Lee reflect their home state's heritage and history. And so the question arose about what's to be done with those states' statues. And that question reminded me about that story that I told you about my Bible professor when I was a student in the seminary. Is it the case that for a state's government to have real integrity and real ethical principles, that it should remove the statues it submitted to the National Statuary? As it turns out, the question has been answered in different ways at different times by different state legislatures and by the architect of the Capitol. Sometimes the statues of unpleasant or controversial historical figures are just moved to less visible and less prominent locations. Notorious racist or enslaver might find his bust moved from the rotunda to a dark niche in a nondescript office hallway. In other cases, a state's government may choose to replace one of its 2 allotted statuary entries. Last year, the Kansas legislature voted to replace the statue of John James Ingalls, a state senator with a somewhat unflattering reputation, with the statue of Amelia Earhart. A few years before that, Ohio withdrew its statue of pro-slavery Governor William Allen and replaced it with one of Thomas Edison. So maybe one of the options is the proper approach for us to embrace as modern, enlightened Jews when we find ourselves confronted with our tradition's troubling and troublesome texts. Maybe instead of reading Leviticus, we ought to consider substituting something else in its place. Maybe we could spend the next 9 or 10 weeks reading poetry, or prophecy, or the biographies of the great ethical minds of our tradition. Or another option could be for us to go ahead and read it, following the traditional prescribed calendar, but just not talk about it all that much. We could have our rabbis and our bar mitzvah students speak in English about more enlightening and ennobling topics while we read Leviticus in Hebrew that few people understand. Or maybe there's room for a third approach, rooted on one hand in a reverence for history and a clear-eyed awareness of ethical evolution and a constantly refining sense of justice in the world on the other. One of my favorite stops on this trip to Washington was our visit to the National Portrait Gallery of the Smithsonian. Washington is a city with more than 70 different museums, but of all of them, this one might be my favorite. I've been there a number of times, and I try to make a point of returning each time I go back. But this time, on my visit to the gallery with my kids, I appreciated something that I hadn't noticed before. One of the centerpiece exhibitions of the museum is the one called America's Presidents. In that section, a visitor is drawn through all of the presidential portraits, displayed in chronological order, starting with Washington and ending with Trump. The most interesting part about the exhibit, aside from the artistry and the remarkable diversity with which the painters and photographers depicted their subjects, was what the curators did to help visitors understand the men in those portraits. In addition to listing the president's dates of birth and death, the years of their terms, the major accomplishments of their administrations, the museum now includes a separate heading on the caption card accompanying each portrait labeled Legacy. And so in addition to the president's major policy positions and his legislative victories and defeats, in addition to the things he did, that little card reflects on how he has been remembered, then and now. The legacy cards catalog their personal failings and their political triumphs alike, putting them into useful and honest context about what they meant to the country they served and the country in which we live today. Each of those 45 men, regardless of affiliation or reputation, is given the same treatment, the same small black type on the same heavy cream-colored card, describing their legacy as we best understand it today from our own particular place in the sweep of American history. The venerated and the celebrated, the disgraced and the impeached, the champions of liberty and masters of the battlefield, the unrepentant enslavers, and the strategists of unforgivable crimes against indigenous peoples. All of them hanging side by side because all of them are equally ours. Their presidential legacies a part of our own American stories. I think that curatorial decision to pair every presidential portrait with a thoughtful statement of legacy was an extremely clever one. Because even when we modern, enlightened thinkers might have the temptation to purge or displace the image of someone whose leadership and ideas are unimaginably far from our own, the museum's stance is instead to offer context and not condemnation. Because the organizers of that exhibit understand correctly that we come to a new appreciation of why history is worth studying when we accept the fact that the people who came before us were not gods. That particular exhibit is emotionally successful because it visually and ideologically demonstrates a continuum from 1 to 45, a sense of dynamic forward movement, tracking the course of our nation's heritage and the way its sense of self has expanded and contracted, shifted and stretched over the years, many times, but by no means always, toward goodness and liberation. And the same is true for the founding fathers of Judaism and for the bedrock words and ideas on which our faith is built. And that's why, finally, about 20 years after he posed the challenge to us, I finally think I've concluded that I disagree with my seminary Bible professor, because I think he was wrong. And I don't think that we would do away with the book of Leviticus today if only we had the guts. Just because we read Leviticus today doesn't mean that we live in the world of Leviticus. Instead, and this is vitally important, we read it today because Leviticus lives in our world and not the other way around. Our history is marked by all kinds of unpleasant and unflattering ideas which have evolved and improved, changing for the better as the light of progress and wisdom have shone upon them. We don't need to look very far at the classical texts of ours or any other ancient religion to find abundant examples of misogyny and racism. We'll quickly and easily see their evidence of our ancestors' unsettling tolerance for slavery and violent punishment. We'll see over and over again the indulgence of xenophobia and homophobia and an abiding suspicion of foreign cultures, foreign peoples, and foreign ideas. But, at least for me, after living with the tension of seeing these ideas in the faith and the tradition that I love, I don't think the right answer is to remove them altogether. No matter how challenging and uncomfortable those ancient ideas may make us, the right remedy is not an ideological purge of ideas or people or perspectives from the past that we consider our intellectual inferiors. Instead, we should do what those Smithsonian curators did with the pictures of James Buchanan and Andrew Jackson and all the others, to offer context, to contextualize their lives and their stories by helping show the full picture of the legacy they leave behind, to acknowledge what they left us, for better and worse, and help us understand how we can build on them to help make a more perfect union. And so, for this reason, much to the dismay of future generations of bar mitzvah kids and their parents, we will continue to live with Leviticus. We'll continue to read those difficult worlds and unsettling stories, continue to engage in the sacred work of the modern mind, to begin with ancient, crude raw materials, and to approach them with the sharp, keen tools of modern thought and modern morality, to make them useful and beneficial and valuable in our world today. Shabbat shalom, everybody. As we think now then about legacy and history, about past and present and future, we take just a moment to do the sacred work of remembering our family's memories, to spend some time walking the halls of our own particular memories and recollections. Before that, though, we'll turn to page 282. We'll rise for Aleinu together, page 282. Thanks.
Aleinu l'shabeach l'Adon hakol, l'tet gidula liotzer breshit, shelo asanu kigoyei ha'aratzot, velo samanu kemishpechot ha'adama, shelo sam chelkenu kahem, vegor aleinu kechol hamonam, v'anachnu korim umishtachavim umodim, livnei melech malachei hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Page 287. V'nei אמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו אחד.
You may be seated. And so as we enter the work of memory together, we turn to page 293 in our books, and our thoughts turn to those who have departed this earth, our own loved ones and those whom our friends and neighbors have lost, the martyrs of our people whose graves are unmarked, and those of every race and nation whose lives have been a blessing to humanity. As we remember them, we meditate on the meaning of love and loss, of life and death. We take just a moment now to do the quiet and tender work of memory. We think now of our loved ones whom death has recently taken from us, those who died at this season in years past, and those whom we have drawn into our hearts with our own. On this Shabbat, the hearts of our congregation go out in sadness and sympathy to the families of Charles Pessin and Lila Rauch, laid to rest in recent days. To their names we add these, the names of those whose yahrzeits fall at this season. Together we remember Morton Julian Adels, Jane Alley, Pauline Applebaum, Florence Berkman, Edwin Berkowitz, Ethel Berman, Kenneth Beretta, Marvin Bertman, Ruby F. Billings, Helen G. Black, Gladys Slavin Brenner, Leah Sersansky, Maddie Clark, Arthur Clark, John H. Coleman, Grace Cowan, Jacqueline Cutler, June Dante, Michael David Darsky, Maurice Doobie Dubinsky, Wallace Dunn, Alex Ecker, Lucille Feenberg, Bernard Finkel, Francis Finkelstein, Frida Lewis Fox, Lonnie Frankel, Myrna Friedman, Louis Freeman, Rose Friedman, Godfrey Furman, Sam Gates, Murray Gary, Sarah Goldman, Katie Greenberg, Peggy Greenblatt, Rachel Handelman, Elizabeth Herbert, Gertrude Hoffman, Rose Siegel Jacobs, Fanny Jacobson, Carolyn Jacobson, Hannah Kaplan, Morris R. Kaplan, Monette Karchmer, Shirley Katz Kardish, Patricia Ann Kaufman, Aline Finger-Kost, Rosalind Bunny Krinsky, Mina Kukas, Ruth Lang, Lillian B. Lassoff, Jack Lavage, Anna Lehman, Jeannie Lee, Elliot H. Levin, Erwin Levin, Ben D. Levine, Sylvia Levinson, Joan Lawrenson, Maynard Marks, Larry Marks, Marlon Martin, Mary B. Mayer, Jacob E. Nimzinski, Milton Lewis Pine, Janice Perlis, Sydney Weisenberg Posmentier, Udell Premack, Myron Robbins, Ruth Robinson, Alan Rocklin, Simona Bodansky-Roddy, Jake Rosenblum, Nathan Klein-Rosenthal, Goldie S. Rothenberg, Larry Sacknowitz, Brina B. Salzberg, Adele Sandler, Sydney Schindler, Jerome Bernard Schlater, Nathan Schwartzberg, Erwin Selzer, Nathan Sharney, Melvin Scheinberg, Irving Schulman, Natalie B. Silverman, Jenny Solomon, Edward Stein, Edith Stolben, Will Swerdloff, Abe Tolsky, Henry Hank Tucker, Jerry Waldman, Pauline Waldman, Hy Warshaw, Bill Wayne, Roger Williams, and Moses Aaron Wilner. The memories of all the departed are with us as we turn in our books to page 294 and rise together for the recitation of Kaddish, page 294. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, be'alma divrach erutei v'yamlich malchutei, B'chayechon u'v'yomechon u'v'chaye d'chol Beit Yisrael, ba'agala u'v'zman kariv v'imru amen. Yehi shmei Rabba mevarach le'alam l'olmei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh. V'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei d'kudsha b'richu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata. Tushbechata v'nechamata. Damiran ba'alma v'imru amen. Yehi shlama Rabba min shemaya. V'chaim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav. Hu ya'aseh shalom. Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen.
Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imru amen.
You may be seated. I want to invite our bar mitzvahs up to the bima, Max and Levi, along with their siblings, Elise and Teddy and Josephine, and their cousins, to join us for Kiddush and Hamotzi as they make their way up here one by one. We're on page 5 of our books. You can come up here so you can lead. There you go. Hey guys, come on in.
And hold it while you sing. Okay? Ready?
Baruch atah Adonai
Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kichanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzav anu. V'shabbat kodsho be'ahava u'ratzon hinkilanu. Zikaron lema'aseh bereshit, ki hu yom tehila lemikra'e kodesh, zecher l'tziat Mitzrayim. Kivanu taharta ve'otanu kidashta mikol amim v'shabbat kodsheha be'ahava u'ratzon hinchaltanu. Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh ha-shabbat.
L'chaim.
I am. Have a sip.
Nicely done.
And now for the motzi. Okay, you don't have to drink the whole thing. Okay. Or you can. All right.
Okay.
Ready for motzi?
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz.
Amen. Why don't
There
you
we
share
go.
this
Pass that
with your family? Here, take the tray.
You guys can take the tray and go
Okay.
ahead and back to your seats.
We
Nicely
conclude our
done.
service this evening
We'll grab
with
some.
our
Yeah, it's for you.
Sephardic Ein Kelohenu, which can be found on page 327 in your books.
Do you guys want to take that and go pass?
Ein Kelohenu, ein Kadonenu, ein Kemalkeinu, ein Kemoshienu, non como nuestro Dios, non como nuestro Señor, non como nuestro Rey.
rise for a moment of benediction. Perfect, thank you. Almighty God, as we enter this month of Nisan, this month of springtime and hope, new beginnings and new possibility, may we see around us in all places the blossoming of goodness and potential, the blooming of redemption and freedom, goodness and peace for us and all we love. May this be your will. Amen. Shabbat shalom, everyone.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.